We shall also be joined by Ms. Aicha Badialo, who is the board member, FAWE Africa, and also a young person, Madame Laurence Kabasele, who is the president of the African Youth and Adolescent Network on Population and Development in East and Southern Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel will also include Mr. Samuel Noga, who is the Director, Plan International African Union License Office. We shall also have a readout of your comments, reflections and questions before we can have a wrap-up of our event today by Karen Ondwasi. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me take this opportunity to invite Her Honor, Madam Mary Chilima, to give us the keynote address. Her Honor, Madam Mary Chilima is the Second Lady of the Republic of Malawi. She is an entrepreneur with various business interests in the retail, education, and mining sectors, as well as a seasoned banker. Her driving passion is sustainable philanthropy based on a strong desire to elevate the education, health, and welfare of rural children through technology. Ladies and gentlemen, as young at heart, spouse to Malawi's Vice President, she identifies strongly with the plight of Malawian girls and the challenges they face, such as GBV, gender-based violence, child marriages, teen pregnancy, and recently online harassment and cyberbullying. She is a founding member of the Children First Trust, which promotes good health, education, and nutrition for Malawi's underprivileged and disabled children. And she's the patron of the Visually and Hearing Impaired Association of Malawi, and recently partnered with Full Armor Malawi to champion support for children with cerebral palsy. Ladies and gentlemen, around me, welcome Her Honor, Madam Mary Chilima, to give us the keynote address. Your Honor, Madam Mary, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Bridget. Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to say all protocols observed. I'm truly honored and privileged to preside over this high-level side event organized on the sidelines of the Global Education Summit. I would like to start by thanking Plan International Africa Union Liaison Office for granting me this opportunity to speak to you today and for making this space possible. I also want to thank Plan International Malawi for honoring me with the role of ambassador for the organization's Freedom Online campaign aimed at ending cyberbullying and sexual harassment. Let me also thank the multiple stakeholders behind the organization of this function, specifically Forum for African Women Educationists, SRHR Africa Trust, Rosario Memorial Trust, and all the young people working behind the scenes to ensure a successful event here today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are virtually gathered here at one of the world's most critical global meetings in the midst of a devastating pandemic. A pandemic that has exacerbated the vulnerabilities of women and girls in the whole world, and Africa in particular. As we focus on raising our hands to fund education, allow me to remind you for whom we make this pledge. As a woman, a Black woman, an African Black woman, I am faced with an intersectionality that presents various limitations and challenges in everything I do. However, I am one of the privileged few because I received a quality education that breaks barriers and allows me to be heard. The millions of voices for whom I speak this afternoon are burdened by the yoke of hunger and poverty. For them, the path to education is riddled with child marriages, early pregnancies, gender-based violence, debilitating cultural norms, and the high economic costs of learning. These girls, if fully supported and empowered, have tremendous potential to contribute to the development of their countries and their GDPs. Conversely, failure to promote their success will result in the eradication of development efforts, and due to the exponential population growth potential they represent, we can be assured of further climate degradation. If the pandemic has taught us one thing, it is that we cannot afford to leave anyone behind. Everyone counts, or no one counts at all. Here in Malawi, we are a youthful nation, with over half of our population under the age of 18. We perceive our human capital to be a great source of wealth. However, we can only harness their full potential if they are well educated. Malawian children are faced with multiple constraints to completing a quality education, including inadequate access to clean water, food, land, sexual and reproductive health services, and the consequences of HIV/AIDS. Furthermore, rural children also face constraints stemming from the education system itself, such as long distances to school, poor teaching and learning processes, inadequate teachers, and poor infrastructure. All this in addition to the challenges of being a girl child. It is clear that the problems that Malawian girls face in completing a quality education are complex and multifaceted. They arise from the entire ecosystem. Their educational experiences and outcomes can only be significantly and sustainably improved when all these domains are aligned socially, culturally, economically, and politically. Educating girls, therefore, requires a multi-stakeholder approach that goes beyond just education. Each of these aspects needs to be tackled simultaneously in order to provide an environment that is conducive to learning for our girls. Our failure to do so creates gaps through which our children's education's dreams fall. Allow me to highlight the government of Malawi's efforts thus far in this space. They are committed to expanding equitable access to education for all children and youth in Malawi, especially girls, through the following initiatives. From 1991 to 2002, they implemented the Girls Attainment in Basic Literacy and Education (GABLE) program in partnership with USAID. The program was aimed at increasing the long-term financial resource base for education and improving the quality, availability, efficiency, and relevance of primary education for girls. Some of the key takeaways of the GABLE program were policy reform and a review of primary school curriculum for gender appropriateness, all of which culminated in the formulation of the National Girls Education Strategy, which is fundamental for bridging the gap in gender parity. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in 1993, Malawi became one of the first African countries to adopt a readmission policy, which allows school-aged mothers to return to school after giving birth. With the high prevalence of teen pregnancies, this policy ensures the continuity of education for teen mothers, providing them with a ray of hope where previously pregnancy meant the end of education. Furthermore, in 1994, free primary education was introduced in a bid to reduce cost-related barriers to education. In recognition of the challenges that early marriages and gender-based violence presented on the quest to educate girls, the Malawian Parliament passed the Child Care Protection and Family Relations Act, the Gender Equality Law, and the Marriage, Divorce, and Family Relations Act, which criminalize harmful traditional practices, including child marriage, and promote equal access to education to safeguard the interests of the girl child. We, however, have not walked this journey alone, as there are various stakeholders that we have partnered with to tackle this complex undertaking, with the understanding that a multi-stakeholder approach is key to success for all. As a nation, we're truly grateful for the initiatives of our development partners, such as Plan International, FAWE, SAT, DFID, World Bank, USAID, World Vision, Save the Children, and the UN Family, among others, for their multi-component programs aimed at supporting the education of vulnerable girls. These programs have offered direct support through cash transfers, bursaries, and scholarships. They've ended child marriages through supporting local chiefs and have sponsored girls to return to school after pregnancy. The programs have raised awareness of sexual reproductive health. They've shaped attitudes through gender transformative programs by engaging men and boys. And they've constructed additional education and support infrastructure, such as schools with appropriate facilities for menstrual hygiene. As a result of all these initiatives and other ongoing efforts, girls' lower primary school enrollment has exceeded parity at 50.1% and in primary schools. And about 45% of secondary enrollments are females, compared to less than 30% in 1990. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Malawi government notes that access is just the first step in preparing girls to be empowered to contribute meaningfully to the society. Quality and relevance of education for marginalized girls is key to ensure employability skills are imparted for an inclusively wealthy and self-reliant nation by 2063, in tandem with Agenda 2063, to which all our African leaders subscribe. I am pleased to note that in our most recent budget, the education sector received the highest allocation, and I'm confident that this will be allocated efficiently. These key achievements are critical for any government advancing the education of girls, and I want to commend the Malawi government for them. However, we still have a long road ahead. Despite all these efforts in the legal, social, and economic spheres, Malawi has one of the highest rates of child marriages in the world, with 42% of our women and girls reported to be married before the age of 18, resulting in high school dropout rates. Though this is an improvement from the 52% that we registered in 2017, the recent school closures as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic have exacerbated this phenomena, and we anticipate that our efforts for the past 5 years may have been eradicated as the figures are rising again. So where do we go from here? It is vital that we conduct inclusive postmortems on our progress thus far that incorporate all stakeholders. A critical aspect of a successful multi-stakeholder approach is unity of voice. Though I'm aware that there are nuances in approaches, priorities, and even ethics, let us not forget the big picture. Let us forge together as one people with one intent, which is to elevate our next generation out of poverty. The efficacy of these interventions requires continuous monitoring, evaluation, and responsiveness, even if the evidence presented contradicts our expectations. Key to the success of this approach is the political will to see it succeed. I would therefore be remiss if I did not use this platform to appeal to our leaders, especially the African Union Commission and member states, for the following. Firstly, we seek a commitment to meeting Sustainable Development Goal SDG 4 that promotes inclusive and equitable quality education, lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. We cannot achieve nor deliver strong education programs without adequate and sustained financing, despite all the other competing sectors that we might be given in our local operating context. Please, our leaders, reflect on an Africa fit for us all, where access to education is the norm and not a luxury. We ask our leaders to continue to commit to and increase public investments to end child marriage. Child marriage kills dreams yet unborn. Please use the success stories amongst yourselves to find creative and innovative ways that will see child marriages eliminated in Africa. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the prevalence of child marriage in Malawi and many other similar countries. Kindly treat this with the urgency it deserves. We ask for high-level coordination underpinned by a multi-stakeholder approach. Please lead us in a geographically aligned and common goal approach to addressing barriers to education based upon common issues in our regional economic communities. Domestication and investment of Agenda 2063. The African girl has been disproportionately affected in many ways and has been left behind for generations. We seek that she garners special attention in Local Vision 2063 agendas. We ask that you work with and empower traditional and religious institutions by deliberately investing in traditional structures in order to accelerate and deliver transformative education outcomes that have buy-in from the keepers of culture. In Malawi, we have role models like Chief Kachindamoto, who is known as a child marriage terminator, who has terminated over 3,000 marriages, and others from across the continent that steer this effort in non-conventional ways that deliver transformational educational outcomes. Lastly, I appeal to our leaders for a creation of an enabling legal and policy environment. Where there are gaps, we call upon member states to enact laws that promote education with transformative changes. Such policies can, among others, include readmission of teen mothers into schools, as well as the eradication of any laws that openly discriminate against women and girls. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, it is clear that our girls' education programming is comprised of a complex web of direct and indirect barriers requiring a multi-pronged, multi-stakeholder approach with precision targeting. It is therefore imperative for civil society, private companies, community leaders, academia, the donor community, governments, teachers, policymakers, boys and girls, and all stakeholders to be engaged with a common vision and purpose to realize this dream. There is hope for us yet, and as long as we forge ahead together, we shall overcome and succeed. I hereby raise my hand in support of education and call upon all stakeholders to take a proactive stance in ensuring that we provide quality education for vulnerable girls. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Honor, Madam Mary Chilima, for that detailed keynote address and for such a powerful commitment towards ensuring that all girls stay in school and no child is left behind. We truly appreciate your support and all your effort for all the girls in Malawi, for all the girls in Africa, and for all the girls in the whole world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Her Honor a round of applause for that very elaborate and good keynote address. Thank you. Now, allow me proceed to welcome Tanaka Jani, who will give us an interesting poem on the factors that expose girls to miss out on enrollment, performance, and completion, as well as to make a few recommendations to us on what we can do differently. Yes, Tanaka Jani, I hope you're online with us.
Hello, Bridget. She's having challenges. She's been entering and dropping. So if we could proceed to give her time to rejoin, she's having some internet challenges.
Sorry, I think she's here. Let me bring her. Promote analyst. There she is.
Tanaka Jani, she's online. Please take over. It's your moment.
Yeah, Tanaka, can you hear us?
Sorry, it seems she has dropped again.
Okay,
Hello?
that's fine.
Yeah.
Is she back online?
No, I
Not
cannot
yet,
see her.
but we can proceed. We'll come back to her.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed now to our panel session, which will be graced by Dr. Rita Bisonot, Head of Mission, African Union CFR. Dr. Rita, are you online?
Yes, good afternoon. I do hope you can see me and hear me.
Yes,
I would
thank
like to
you so
share
much.
my screen, if that's possible. Yes. So, Your Honor, Madam Chilima, spouse of the Vice President of Malawi, Mrs. Martha Muhezi, Director of FAWE, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting the African Union International Center for Girls and Women's Education to be here today. We were asked, so I do hope you can see, we were asked to talk about the AUC and member states' previous strategies and necessary actions for the future in educating girls in vulnerable situations. Let me just briefly start what the African Union's Agenda 2063 talks about. And it clearly states an aspiration to a peaceful, integrated, and prosperous Africa led by its people. And this is reiterated in many of our African Union policy documents, especially our Continental Education Strategy for Africa 2016 to 2025. However, many of our African countries are still facing serious challenges resulting from low level or absence in schools, which puts them in fragile and vulnerable situations with various and specific needs. And the COVID pandemic has hugely exacerbated this issue. And also a lot of countries are also facing conflicts. And this again reduces the levels of attendance of girls in our school. Many of our schools, I take the case of Burkina Faso, many schools have been closed in Burkina Faso. What are some of the documentations? What are some of the legal instruments that we have in our continent concerning the rights to access to school? We have what we call the Maputo Protocol, most commonly known as the Maputo Protocol, but which is in fact the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of women in Africa, which was entry in force on the 25th of November, 2005. Despite was there this need to have this Maputo Protocol? Because despite ratification of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and other international human rights instruments, state parties committed to eliminate all forms of discrimination and harmful practices against women, who still unfortunately continue to be victims of discrimination and harmful practices. This protocol calls for condemnation and elimination of all practices that hinder and endangers the normal growth and affects the physical and psychological development of women and girls. To date, we only have 42 countries out of our 55 AU member states who have signed and ratified this Maputo Protocol. We have our Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security, who was appointed by the chairperson of the African Union Commission in 2014, and whose mandate is to ensure that the voices of women and the vulnerable are heard much more clearly in peace building and in conflict resolution. What we regularly do at the African Union CFR is that we regularly organize high-level dialogue side events, especially in February on the margins of the AU summits. And in 2020, the theme was silencing the guns to ensure safe schools and learning outcomes for girls and women for Africa's development. It was the aim was to strengthen stakeholders' commitments on specific measures to protect girls, women and boys in education systems in both conflict and post-conflict situations, to mainstream gender responsive education sector planning in humanitarian and emergency situations in order to end the phenomena of out of school girl living in hotspot situations, and to advocate for all member states to implement the Safe School Declaration aiming to protect and secure teaching and learning environments. From that high-level summit, we had an assembly decision which requested the AUCFA to spearhead the development of a mechanism for regular reporting on the situation of girls and women's education in our AU member states to ensure they're safe, that the teaching and learning environments are safe, and how are refugees mainstream in local education systems. This is why we are very happy to be here today to discuss about those issues, because this shows the close collaboration that we have with FAWE, who is one of our main partners with whom we work to advocate and to implement programs in girls and women's education. Right now, we are currently working on a handbook on out-of-school girls. What we have done is that we have started working with partners, because the issue, first of all, the concept of out-of-school girl is a very complex concept. What does out-of-school mean? Does out-of-school mean girls who have never been to school, girls who have dropped out of school, or girls who have gone to school for some certain time and have dropped out because they have not been able to succeed in their exams? So it is a very large concept of out-of-school girls. And this is what we are doing, is that we are working with both member states and our partners on what type of programs have they developed and implemented in targeting girls' education in difficult situations, such as gender-based discrimination and violence, early marriage, which the Vice President's spouse has just talked about, conflicts, and by development partners. The aim of having this handbook, which should be ready by the end of the year and published, is to bring complementarity in our approaches, to have more innovative strategies for us to share on real change and contribute to sustainable development. One of the major projects on which we are working right now is our Africa Educator campaign. I'm not too sure if we can watch it. I cannot link it, but it is a campaign which is to rally AU member states, partners, and youth to take action towards ensuring continued learning and re-entry to school during and post-COVID. We have received over 200 pledges, especially from our youth, from our alumni. We have over 250 alumni also. And what those young people have done is that they have gone in the community. They have made sure that our girls go back to school by providing them with sanitary pads, by giving them masks, by giving them different, for example, the gel to be able to sanitize, the sanitizer, to be able to sanitize your hands. We have also developed fact sheets on what member states are doing to ensure continued learning, especially for girls in vulnerable situations. Some reflections. There are a lot of gains to be celebrated, especially after or during Beijing +25. However, we still have concerns of persistent social norms. Given the impact of COVID-19 on girls and women's education, AU's decade of women's financial and economic inclusion will also be affected, slowing down progress on literacy, especially at a time when we're talking so much of digital literacy. We are, as most of us now are using digital platforms, e-learning, it is very important for our girls and women to be digitally literate. We also need to have a balance between technical and financial support from our partners and donors to maintain this momentum and to ensure that we have changes at grassroots level. We also need to increase resilience at all levels of well-functioning educational systems and strengthen our human capacities. And here I'm talking mostly about our teachers, who we know have been very much affected by the pandemic. Managers, parents, and teachers associations work very, very closely with them. So partnerships are key are key. It is having multi-sectoral approach, working at a multidisciplinary level. And here I think, again, I come to the implementation, the domestication of legal frameworks. We need commitments from our member states to make sure that they are domesticating, that they will attain gender equality and thus women's empowerment. We need to collaborate, and this is what we are doing, work more with our Pan-African parliamentarians to accelerate the domestication of these legal instruments. Capacity building of member states in mainstreaming gender, especially in educational sector plans. And here we are working with UNGAI, with FAWE, with Plan International. Make sure that our curricula is gender sensitive, work closely with the African Curriculum Center, work with UNESCO, ICBA, and other stakeholders. Make sure that more member states ratify the Safe Schools Declaration. And of course, we are also working with education in emergencies. So that is briefly what we have been doing, what the African Union has been doing, how closely we are working with some partners, and how much we need to further work to ensure that gender equality happens, really happens in the next coming years. Allow me to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rita Bisonot, for sharing with us some of the key strategies and activities that the African Union Commission and member states can take to accelerate the improvement of girls' education, especially girls in vulnerable situations. One take I can take from your presentation is the youth involvement and engagement in the Africa Educates Her campaign. I do agree with you and with the rest of the members that we need to engage young people to take action to ensure continued learning and re-entry into school for all the vulnerable girls. Yes, we appreciate you so much for all these efforts, also to engage different partners at all levels to provide regular reporting mechanisms for us to have available data to prove our case, to ensure that girls remain in school and don't drop out. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me welcome Tanaka Jani again. I hope she's online now.
Yes, she is.
Yes, Tanaka, you're welcome. The floor is yours. Can she unmute?
Thank you. Good day to you all protocol observed. My name is Tanaka Jan, and this is my story, and the story of thousands of my sisters living in rural communities. As the obedient child that I am, I wake up early every morning to do my house chores and prepare the long journey to school. As I walk to school, already tired from my house chores with my peers, fear always greets us as we pass through the bush, as we have heard of men who are kidnapping children these days. And I dare not walk up, as there are potential abusers lurking everywhere. Oh, how I wish there were schools close by, so that I don't get to school tired and with a peace of mind. Rainy times are the worst, for we have to howl up in under the Msasa tree until it stops. I always wonder, is this how life should be when I go to school? Not to have enough classrooms, having shared that one textbook.
Are you still with us? Hello?
It's off. She's off.
Sorry about that. Tanaka just broke off, but we'll give her some time to continue with that story. We would love to hear from her. And ladies and gentlemen, allow me proceed. When she comes in, we'll bring her back. Yes, let me welcome Ms. Aisha Badialo, who is the board member, FAWE Africa. Yes, Ms. Aisha, you're most welcome. And my question to you for this event is what is the role of development partners in improving resilience in the education sector to curb the unprecedented impact of COVID-19 and other relatable pandemics affecting girls' education in Africa? Yes, Madam Aisha, over to you.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Good morning to all of you. And all protocol observed, as said Tanaka. Allow me to start by presenting FAWE. Then I will talk about how COVID-19 and other crises have affected the education sector before. Then I will talk about the role of development partners in improving resilience in education. You know, FAWE is a Pan-African membership NGO established 29 years ago to champion for education rights for girls in Africa. Membership comprises...
Hello, could you share your screen, please? Your video?
Oh, here yes. I am.
Very good, yes.
Anyway, the membership of FAWE comprises of the academia, women in the academia, you know, vice chancellors, ministers of education, former and sitting, policy makers, influencers. We have 34 chapters and present in 33 countries. Now, what is the impact of COVID-19 and other relatable pandemics on the education sector? According to UNICEF, COVID-19 related school closures led to discontinued learning of 250 million learners in sub-Saharan Africa. And the World Bank has reported that in Europe and Central Asia, 185 million children were affected by school closures. Thousands of girls in Africa were raped, impregnated during the pandemic times. Countries such as Kenya and Zimbabwe cumulatively registered close to 8,958 teenage pregnancies within the first 5 months of the pandemic. It shows evidence on increased gender violence during the pandemic. And millions of learners missed a calendar year and have had to spend more than 1 year in one class. And according to UNICEF, more than 50 million students had lost access to free daily meals. And the demand for teachers increased due to social distancing measures in schools. School learning structures were also rendered inadequate against the large number needed to return to school with full observation of COVID-19 measures. And we also saw cases of children learning under trees. Other crises, such as overcrowded schools, conflict, school fires, have led to poor performance and learning outcomes, among others. Now, what is the role of development partners in improving resilience in education? We in FAWE, we think that they could conduct periodical risks assessments on conventional and emergent catalysts to school closures and overall discontinued learning, support government to digitalize curricula and records on all school-going children to boost online learning and keep track of access, retention, completion, and transition rates of all school-age children. Then they also could collaborate with governments to develop, finance, implement, and monitor gender-responsive education sector plans, policies, budget, and strategies to ensure that all learners, irrespective of their background, medical, biological limitation, geographical area, and sexual orientation, have their needs catered for in all the years of their education. They also could gather periodically gender disaggregated data on girls in vulnerable situations. We need gender data on school-age children, including citizenship, socioeconomic status, geographical locations, exposure to violence and neglect. This will enable governments to accurately plan interventions to address the identified needs. They could support both government and private-owned institutions of learning to develop crisis preparedness plans to mitigate potential disruptions of school calendars. If invest in girls-led and feminist movements, effective short and long-term solutions to girls' barriers to education, because it lies in the deliberate. The girls have to be involved in the decision-making concerning their lives. They have to be involved. They have to be consulted. They could also translate global, regional, and national commitments to action. Their framework developed lay out legislative and social economic targets that government can adopt to effectively meet the demand of school-going age children. They could support government's initiatives in empowering teachers to be technologically savvy in order to invent, adapt, and deploy innovative teaching methodologies during crisis. They will use technology in their daily lives, day-to-day lives. They also could collaborate with governments, construct and remote facilities such as classroom changing rooms for girls, sports centers, etc., to boost productivity and performance rate among learners. They could also support governments in coordinating all stakeholders' contribution, including development partners, sensitize communities on the value of girls' education, including protecting children, allowing them to participate in decision-making processes, mentorship, among others. I hope that I have kept the 10 minutes, even less, right? Thank you so much. And let me tell you that it is really a pleasure to be with you today representing FAO. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Aisha Badialo, for that very elaborate presentation on the role of the development partners in improving resilience in the education sector to ensure that all girls are able to stay in school regardless of COVID-19 or any other pandemics that we may face. From your presentation, I noticed that we need crisis management plans to ensure that education is not affected as we are experiencing now. Much as you indicated that development partners need to support the use of technology. We, however, noticed that many of the children out there are unable to learn online due to lack of digital skills. Then the internet penetration, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, is very low and also very poor. So I think our development partners also have taken note of that. And we thank you so much for putting up this very good presentation and for representing FAWE. Thank you. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to take on Tanaka again for this last time. Yes, Tanaka, are you there?
Yes, she is.
Oh, great. Yes, continue. Yes, Tanaka. We're waiting for you. It's your moment. Yes, there she is.
Tanaka Jan, and this is my story, and the story of thousands of my sisters living in rural communities. As the obedient child. Good day to you all. All protocols. My name is Tanaka Jan, and this is my story. And the story of thousands of my sisters living in rural communities. As obedient child I am, I wake up early every morning to do my house chores and prepare the long journey to school. As I walk to school already tired from my house chores with peers, fear always grips us as we
Yes, Tanaka, are you there?
Yes, unfortunately, we're having challenges with her network. I think we'll carry on with the panel. She will post her poem on the chat box.
Okay, let's continue with our panel session. Let's not tire to give her a chance to tell us her story. Yes, Madame Lawrence Kabasele sent in her apologies. She won't be able to join us. So allow me proceed to Mr. Samuel Noga, the Director of the African Union License Office for Plan International. Yes, I hope you're ready, Mr. Samuel Noga. And our question for you is that what are some of the key strategies that have worked and what is lacking in mitigating the barriers to girls' education in humanitarian and in other vulnerable situations? Yes, Mr. Samuel Noga, over to you.
Thank you very much, Bridget. Your Excellency, Madam Mary Chilima, Second Lady of Malawi, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our young persons who are present here, our partners, fellow panelists, or protocols observed. I would have loved to listen to Tanaka's story. I think it truly reflects what we are all talking about. And the question is, why should a young girl be tired before she gets to school? And we know she's supposed to get to school, and she's supposed to get to school to go and learn. And so getting a girl who go to school already tired, that's all the household chores, wakes up probably 3 a.m., 4 a.m., is precisely what we're talking about. And on behalf of Plan International, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me and for Plan International to share our reflection on the topic which you just mentioned, which is key strategies that have worked, what is lacking in mitigating barriers to girls' education in humanitarian setting and other vulnerable situations, and also to make some recommendations to the African Union and also member states. Let me first begin by stating the obvious, and the obvious is that Plan believes that investing in girls' education, especially at basic level, is fundamental to economic prosperity, to improve stability on our continent, to peace, security, eradication of harmful practices, and improve health outcomes. And I think this have come out when some of the earlier panelists were talking. We also believe that girls' education is one and the most cost-effective way to narrow gender disparity, improve skills and opportunity for girls and young people. But also, we believe that education is the surest accelerator to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly those that relate to education, health, gender, poverty eradication, water, and sanitation. More specifically, on the continent, we believe that investing in girls' education is the single most important investment any country and the continent can make in achieving the aspiration of the African Union Agenda 2063, Agenda 2040, and also Maputo Protocol. And I think it's very important that we also relate to the continental education strategy for Africa and the gender equality strategy for the continental strategy for Africa, which provide blueprint and also roadmaps for achieving gender responsive and transformative education outcomes across the continent. I think more broadly, both strategies provide specific recommendations and actions for improving education outcomes and to ensure that education parity in the humanitarian setting and other vulnerable settings are achieved. And I think the second lady mentioned that when she was making her keynote address. It is also critical to acknowledge that the AU theme for the year, which is arts, culture, heritage, which are the levers for building the Africa we want, provide a good leverage and underpins the call for elimination of barriers that prevent girls from attaining quality education in humanitarian settings. And that brings sharply to mind Tanika's story, which we still haven't heard. Now, PLAN takes a long-term sustainable approach and response to girls' education in humanitarian settings, using our education in emergencies framework. We align our responses to initiatives within the response plan of the host country, and we ensure convergence between our initiative and government responses. And in so doing, we work and we collaborate with relevant stakeholders in our response to ensure complementarity, but also making sure that we are leveraging resources and avoiding duplication of effort and the same resources. We recognize that girls have their own agencies and have potential to actively engage in decisions and responses that affect them, especially responses and initiatives within the education sector. And so we adopt a holistic view of the life cycle of girls from infancy to adulthood, using the nexus approach between between development and humanitarian to address education in countries where we work. We do all of these by adopting a right-based and gender-responsive approach to our education interventions in emergencies and humanitarian situations by putting the rights of marginalized girls at the center of our disaster preparedness and our responses. Now, please allow me to highlight a few strategies that have worked in promoting girls' education in vulnerable situations. The first strategy which have worked and which we have tested in most of the countries we work is supporting the safe return of girls back to school. And we do this by supporting education ministries and government effort to ensure the safe return of girls to school, and especially with COVID and also the various variants of COVID. We ensure that we are providing and supporting material school learning and teaching materials. We are providing financial support where it's needed and also providing and supporting school feeding programs wherever it's needed. We also run campaigns that target families with girls who unfortunately have become pregnant during COVID for their safe return to school. And I think this has also been mentioned both by Rita and also the second lady. Our second strategy is ensuring that the school environment is safe for girls. Safety, protective, conducive environment are key for effective teaching and learning. And that have been successful in ensuring safe spaces to provide conducive learning for girls to meet and discuss issues that affect them, to help them learn safely, including ensuring their mental well-being and also providing and provision of psychosocial support for girls. We provide assistive learning tools for girls with disability, those with hearing impairment, and also with those with visual impairment. We provide water and sanitation facilities to ensure girls are retained in school and they focus on education. And that also includes providing water and sanitation facilities in communities. And that is where Tanaka's story comes in, where she doesn't have to wake up to go fetch water because water will be in her community. The other strategy that I've worked is ensuring that girls are safe, both online and also at home. And we do believe, and I think it was Bridget who mentioned, technology. Technology is key, and especially with COVID, we've seen that it's one of the drivers for effective teaching and learning. But we also know that it exposes girls to online abuse. And so we have been working with tech companies, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and internet service providers to make sure that the internet and social media platforms are safe for girls, but also working to ensure that girls have access to child helplines so they can report cases wherever it happens, and they can also receive needed support wherever it's necessary. We support online learning platforms by providing access to internet and also other audiovisual equipment, TV, radios, wherever it is possible to learners in remote communities. We also build the capacity of social workers and teachers in case management, especially in cases where we have COVID affecting students and girls who go to those schools. The other strategy that I've worked is access to comprehensive sexuality education and adolescent sexual reproductive and health services. And we've done that through strengthening campaigns against sexual and gender-based violence and other forms of harmful practices and social norms. And we have intensified support for menstrual hygiene and management among adolescents. We have also adopted a strategy of improving family income and food security. And we all know that one of the drivers and also one of the challenges that girls face is that most of them go to school probably on empty stomachs. And so we have supported the capacity of families to be able to provide food for their families through direct food distribution. And in most cases, also through income generation ventures with the intention of building their capacity and skills in a sustainable way. We also do support coordinated and collaborative approach to girls' education, and this involves adapting a multi-level, multi-dimensional, intersectorial, and interagency development approach that's taking the whole girl approach and making sure that everybody comes on board. And I think the second lady mentioned that as well, that building partnership for sustainability. We ensure that our responses are equitable, they are inclusive, gender responsive, sensitive to the local situations, and have the best interest of the girl as its core. And finally, we adopt an accountability system where we track progress that is being made and provide feedback mechanisms for improving the life and education outcomes of girls. Now, despite the effectiveness of these strategies, we definitely have some challenges, which are significant barriers to girls' education in vulnerable settings. So please allow me to highlight a few of them. One of them is limited funding by government and donors. Currently, we know only 2 to 3% of humanitarian assistance goes into funding education in emergencies. That is really, really small. There are also human rights violations, girls' rights violations, gender-based violence, child marriages, FGM, high school dropout rate among girls. The other challenge is there are reported cases of conflict between host communities and internally displaced persons. And this in most cases affect the quality of teaching and learning, and especially put girls at risk. We have also identified the lack of implementation of policies and legislations, especially those that guarantee the safety and protection of girls in camps. And sometimes we have seen sporadic attacks to girls in camps. And that comes with it the stress, the trauma, the mental health issues among girls, including curtailment of movement and sometimes their right to participate in decisions that affect them. In most cases, access to humanitarian assistance is curtailed, and we've seen cases where sometimes government forces and rebel forces have frustrated access to humanitarian assistance to people who are supposed to have them. But also lack of proper infrastructure that support quality learning is also lacking in most communities. Now, despite all these barriers, we want to be fair and also recognize the contribution member states are making, one in adopting the Kampala Convention, but also the increased budget education, and especially for countries that have committed and have heeded to the call by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta for countries to increase domestic funding of education. Now, we would want to make a few recommendations in light of what I've discussed. Now, one of them is calling for the ratification of the Kampala Convention and the domestication of laws to ensure that the rights of girls in humanitarian settings are protected and respected. We are also calling for the ratification of Safe School Declaration by countries who haven't done so, and also call for member states to guarantee free passage of humanitarian support. And we'd also want to encourage everybody. There is a Safe School Declaration Conference happening in Nigeria, Abuja, in October. It will be good for us to support and also provide the partnership that is required. Ahead of the GP Replenishment Summit, we would want to call on member states to put enough budget, at least a minimum of 20% of their GDP to education, and ensure that girls' education is prioritized. We also call on member states to implement policies that allow girls safe and supported to re-enter education when it becomes necessary. And I think Malawi have set the pace. There are other countries on the continent who are doing the same thing, but we know there are a lot of countries who haven't gotten there yet, and would want to call on member states to do that. States should institute measures that ensure that children of school-going age are accounted for and are back to school when school reopening. Create platforms and opportunities for girls to be involved in decisions that relate to education and make sure they are sitting at the table. We can't call on girls to be future leaders if they're not sitting on the table today. So we need girls to be part of the discussion and be part of the conversation. Now, as I conclude, I would want to reiterate Plan International's strong commitments to continue to invest and support girls' education in both development and humanitarian settings. Plan will continue to work with all relevant stakeholders to build a strong partnership to foster quality, inclusive, and gender-responsive education in humanitarian and vulnerable settings. I thank you for your attention, and back to you, Bridget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel Noga, for that very detailed presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, will agree with me that from your presentation, we note that the rights-based and the gender-based approach to addressing education needs of girls affected by conflict is one of the means or strategies in which we can reach out to ensure that these girls in humanitarian settings are not left behind. And also thank you for your commitment by Plan International to continue investing in girls' education, regardless of the circumstances, with or without COVID, with or without other pandemics. Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel. Yes, Her Honor, I hope she's still online with us. Before I read out some of your comments and reflections about this event, allow me ask Her Honor a question. I hope she's still online with us. Yes, Your Honor, are you still around? Madam Mary Chilima?
Hello, sorry, I'm here.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Honor. My question to you is that what are your recommendations to civil society actors to drive the effectiveness in girls' education? Yes, over to you.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Firstly, I would like to recommend that they strengthen their coordination efforts amongst themselves, and especially through sharing of best practices and leveraging on consortiums, making sure that the evidence that they gather out there is fed back into government to inform policy. I would also, therefore, ask them to complement government efforts in the dissemination of critical policies, for example, the readmission policy that we spoke about. Possibly also to leverage and effectively use their spaces to achieve transformative education outcomes for girls and boys, and to continue to have robust male engagement strategies to ensure that we do get the input of the young men on tackling issues such as child marriage and some of the cultural norms that really set us back. But another key aspect for me is that maybe to take an evidence-based approach to programs. Sometimes we keep programs that are not as effective for a long time because of other nuances in the setup. Maybe it could be political reasons or other reasons, but to take an evidence-based management strategy approach to say that this works and this does not work, and we therefore will replicate this and we'll stop this. I really think if we do take on board all those aspects, we should have a comprehensive approach from the civil society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me go through some of the comments and reflections, if we have any from those attending online. And thereafter, we'll go into the question and answer. Please keep your questions in the chat box. We'll be reading them out to the different panelists. Yes, before that, allow me read out Tanaka Jani's story or poem that she wanted to share with us. It's unfortunate that she's not been able to do it in her own voice, but allow me be Tanaka for now, please.
Madam Bridget, is it possible to give Tanaka one last time via audio so that she doesn't show her video, but we hear her out? I think we're so interested in that special story of hers. Tanaka, maybe one last time, if you could try with your internet connection.
Tanaka? There is an African saying that when a child beats a drum, even the old people should dance. So let's give Tanaka another chance and we dance and listen to her story. Yes, Tanaka?
Sorry, Bridget, we can't hear you. I don't know about the rest.
Oh, I can hear you.
Now we can hear both of you.
Your Honor.
Yes,
actually, we can't hear anybody. Yeah. Can we get some technical support, please? If you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Your Honor, Madam Mary Chilima, we can hear you.
Oh.
Yes, Tanaka, are you on? We can't hear you again.
Connection is very bad.
Yeah, I think her network is bad.
Yeah, I think you should read her message so at least we will know what she is talking about. You will know her story. If you'd like to know her story, please.
All right, I think let me go by what the rest of the members will agree, that I read out what she wanted to present to us. It's unfortunate she's not been able to do it in her own voice. Yes, she says, good day to you all protocol observed. My name is Tanaka Jani, and this is my story and the story of thousands of my sisters living in rural communities. As the obedient child that I am, I wake up early every morning to do my house chores and prepare the long journey to school. As I walk to school already tired from the chores with my peers, fear always grips us as we pass through the bush, as we have learned walk alone, as there are potential abusers lurking everywhere. Oh, how I wish there were Oh, how I wish there were schools close by so that I don't get to school tired and with a peace of mind. Rainy times are the worst as we have to haul up under the msasa trees until it stops. I always wonder, is this how life should be when I go to school? Not to have enough classrooms and having to share that one textbook with the teacher, having to share a small toilet with the entire school, and when that period hits, life is just but a nightmare. To be honest, it's not the best. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is Tanaka Jani's story. I think that we feel touched by this story that she has to jump over bushes with many of her sisters to reach school. Madam Aicha noted to us later the infrastructural challenges of achieving girls' education, where some of the children study under trees, and the many other challenges that have been discussed by other panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me go through some of the questions that you have directed to the panelists. Our first question is that what strategies have the development partners like FAWE and PLAN put in place to scale up the adaptation of communities and orientation of attitudes among the local communities in ensuring the effectiveness of the online learning? We do agree that most parents perceive that availing these young girls with gadgets can expose them to subversive tendencies and expose them to early marriages. What had been done to optimize the adaptation of online learning in local communities amidst the challenges that you, our panelists, have said? I think this question is directed to Madam Aicha Badialo. Yes.
Okay. First of all, schools have to be built near the homes. And the schools should have separate toilets for girls, enough for girls, for boys, for teachers, male and females. They should also have light, and as possible, the government plus developing partners to make sure that they will have access to ICTs. And the government should negotiate with the providers of internet to give free the internet to schools. And they should also have, that's what we do, sanitary pads for girls during their menstruation so that they will not miss classes. Guiding and counseling is something very important for boys and girls. And also, if any girl is abused, the parents should not negotiate with the parents of the boy, of the teacher. It has to go to justice. And the person, the abuser, has to be punished. Otherwise, you will have a lot of rapes, teenage pregnancies, and who is losing? It's always the girls who are losing. The boys are always, left. And that has to stop. What else? The teachers are key. If they are not gender sensitive, if they are not provided gender sensitive pedagogies, they will not be able to cater for boys and girls. When we talk about girls' education, it's all, whatever you do, it's really quality education. When you focus on girls, you are talking about quality education. Because when the school has quality, everybody will come. Girls, but also boys. That's what people do not understand. You are always talking about girls, girls, girls. They said, yes, because they are the ones who are missing. But when they come, it also will come. Anyway, they have to live together. They have to learn how to live together. And the teachers are key. They must know that each child has his or her potential. So that's what I think. This is what we do in FAWE. We have this gender-sensitive pedagogy. We have a whole package. We have also to empower girls to talk. And you have the Tuseme, where boys and girls talk together about the problems they are facing together, finding themselves solutions, and then making a play out of it. And it empowers girls to talk, to denounce what is going on. And then the boys realize what the girls are going through and how they can contribute to solving these problems. I think I will stop there. If there is any other question, then I will answer.
Thank you very much, Madam Aisha. The same question has been forwarded to Plan International. Mr. Samuel Noga, maybe you can respond to it in addition to what Madam Aisha has shared with us. Yes, over to you, Mr. Samuel.
Thank you very much. I think that is a very pertinent question. As parents, that is always one of our nightmare. Exposure to social media, exposure to the internet. I mean, we can't do without it. The question is, how do we make sure that our children don't fall prey? So plans have put in place, and we continue to lobby and advocate with service provider. But let me start by talking about our safeguarding policy. I mean, we make sure that girls know exactly what the danger signs are in terms of access to internet, because they have to deal with it anyway. So we have safeguarding policies, which ensure that girls know, but also that anybody who works with girls and young people is also bound by those safeguarding policies, which also includes that we have punitive measures in place for those who are offenders. But we also working with social media platforms, especially with Facebook. We have been working with Facebook in identifying what are some of the challenges, especially online harassment, through a campaign which we launched last year on the Day of the Girl Child, being safe online, free to be online. And Facebook have been working with Plan and other partners in ensuring that they are able to identify what will be the training packages for young people. So building capacity of young people, but also making sure that they know the reporting mechanism to be able to report offenders. Facebook has also committed to expunge from their network anybody who harasses and abuses girls. So those are some of the very practical ways of ensuring that girls are safe online. Of course, it's not foolproof, and so parents also have a responsibility in making sure that we are also talking to our children when they go online, see how we are able to monitor them. There are tools for monitoring, especially for the age-sensitive websites and also for applications. And so, for example, we know children under the age of 13 cannot access Facebook. They cannot access most of the social media platforms. So if your daughter or your son has access to any of those, then obviously they are bypassing the age limit. So those are some of the things we are doing. But I think importantly, we are also working with school teachers and school administrations, especially in areas where we have provided access to internet, to also educate them on how to make sure that the girls are only using sites that are appropriate for their ages. So those are some of those, but like I said, it's something that is ongoing, and the conversation has to be ongoing. And as we turn more to online platforms, that is something that we have to also work with local service providers, internet service providers, in making sure that they themselves are also providing enough security to make sure that people are not able to penetrate through their firewalls. I mean, I do agree definitely that we need to make sure that schools are getting closer to children, and that is where I agree with the call by the Second Lady of Malawi to make sure that member states, but also partners, are providing and supporting the development of infrastructure as close as possible to where girls and children live. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel.
I have one joke. You were in a meeting, and they were talking about online abuses and bullying, whatever. A teacher from one of our countries, I'm not going to say it, said, hey, what are we talking about? We don't even have light.
Very true, very true there. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Samuel and Madam Aisha. Our second question, I think, is targeted to Dr. Rita, and it says, a number of commitments have been made by African Union member states intended to improving the well-being of women and girls, but are there in place accountability structures to ensure that these commitments are attained? Yes, Dr. Rita, maybe you can take on that.
Yes, Thank you very much for the question. I've responded to some of the questions on the chat box, but I didn't respond to this. Of course, we have accountability, and what we do for accountability, I mean, we have a lot of protocols, we have a lot of legal instruments which are domesticated and ratified by our AU member states. But concerning, as an African Union institution, we cannot ask for accountability directly to member states. So we use different mechanisms for accountability. The first one, what we do is that we have regular reporting. And for this, we have what we have, which is our RACA report, which is a report of activities on education, where we ask member states and we also search on what have they done on those different aspects concerning education, or more specifically on girls and women's education. And these are reports which come out. And right now we have a monitoring report on what different AU member states have done on ratification and domestication of legal instruments. What we also do is that we work with our youth networks to make sure that they are the ones on the ground, that they go and seek these accountability themselves with their own governments. And I think this is very key, knowing that our youth themselves represent over 60% of the continent. So I think it is up to the youth to do this task. And this is what we do through our own capacity building workshops, making sure that they are empowered, that they know the right questions to ask, and to be able to discuss at a certain level with their own government officials. And of course, we work closely with our partners, as I said in my presentation earlier. I mean, it is, of course, up to our partners, the civil society organizations, to make sure that this accountability is taken into account, that our member states do what they say they will do. So it is at different levels. Thank you very much for your great questions.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rita.
Can I just add something little to what Rita just said?
Okay, go ahead.
I think I agree with Rita 100%. And one of the things that we tell our offices and also with the group that we work with is that the African Union is made up of the 55 member states. And the member states reside in countries where we are citizens of. And so the surest way to hold the AU, I mean, the commission only sits in Addis, but the members are in our countries. And so the only way to hold the African Union accountable is to hold our own countries accountable. One, to know what policies they've ratified, and if they haven't ratified, we've just been told that only 42 countries have ratified the Maputo Protocol. Where are the rest? I mean, our countries haven't ratified. So I think that the core is that we as citizens of our countries need to be abreast with what is happening at the AU level, and then check and see if our member states, our countries, have ratified. And if they've ratified, have they domesticated? If they have domesticated, are they implementing? And if we each do that in our countries, then ultimately we'll be holding the AU accountable, because that is where accountability mechanisms lie. So I totally agree. I think the AU would always be the AU, the Secretariat would always be in Addis, but where the action should take place is our countries, and we should all hold ourselves accountable to hold our countries accountable. And that is why we vote for our leaders. That is why we vote for our presidents. That's why we vote for the people who are supposed to be there to implement policies that are agreed on at the AU level. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. But just before you raise your mic, there's another question here for you. And this person is asking, how can female students who were attending tertiary education in Uganda will be out of their studies because of COVID-19? I think the person is trying to ask, how can female students who were attending tertiary education in Uganda or in any other countries be supported to continue with their studies because of out of COVID-19, something like that? I don't know if you have anything to say, or if the question is clear, or we need to.
Well, I think you made the question clearer. I mean, definitely we do support and ensure that girls attain the highest education level as possible. I mean, different planned countries have different support mechanisms. And so what I would do is, and unfortunately, we don't have the person's contact, but if you do, we can give the person's contact to our office in Uganda. We can get the person to go to the office, talk to them and see what kind of support they can provide. But definitely, we ensure that girls attain their highest education as possible. And so my recommendation is if the person is in Uganda, I mean, they can approach the plan office and engage the country office on that conversation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the questions. Allow me read through some of our comments and reflections from our participants online. Yeah, our first comment today is Tanaka's challenges with internet is illustrative of the challenges children across many countries in Africa face to access online learning materials to further their education. The rural poor are particularly left behind in terms of their access to quality education. Can we get the telecom companies such as Airtel, who make so much profit in Africa, to provide better access to the internet for schools in rural areas? I do agree with you. We already noted that, I think it was Madam Aisha who noted that we need to task the telecom service providers to offer free internet to schools so that children continue learning. And also another comment from someone is that the Maputo Declaration requires governments to spend at least 10% of public expenditure on education. We do agree from what has already been shared that youth engagement needs to be one of the investments right now to ensure accountability from the AU member states, from our own governments, and also to empower young people to follow up on the commitments by our governments. Yes, also another participant online says that, okay, this one goes to Your Honor, Madam Mary Chilima. She says, Madam Mary Chilima is very eloquent and the issues she raised bang on the money. Thank you. I want to applaud her inclusive approach, ensuring boys remain part of the conversation. As a mother of a girl and a boy, I find that this is very important. Thank you very much, Helen. We do agree that it takes a community to raise a child. And that's what another participant online also noted. Yes, maybe one last question that I can mention, that well articulated FAWE and Plan International, it's no longer possible to separate young people from technology. They need to harness the power of technology to promote quality and inclusive access to education, at the same time dealing with community accountability concerns, especially towards enhanced safety. All right, thank you very much for your comments and reflections, and as well as for your participation, the questions you've forwarded to us. Yeah, allow me go through a few of the recommendations that have been made by our panelists. And one of them is that we need to ensure the ratification of the Kampala Declaration, and also ensure that increased funding for education by our governments. And also another recommendation that was put forward is strengthening coordination to inform policy and dissemination of gender responsive policies. Yes, we will have a whole wrap up of the recommendations on what we can do differently, which will be presented to us in a bit. Yeah, allow me give our panelists a brief moment to just give us the final remarks, then we can have a summary of our discussion in this event tonight. Yes, over to you, Dr. Rita, just your final remarks and any other recommendations that you would want to make.
Sorry. Thank you very much. We know that our girls more and more so are being marginalized, are being put in vulnerable situations, especially with this COVID-19 and situation, and especially as many countries are opening schools, reclosing schools, and we know that the rates of child marriage, gender-based violence have increased considerably in our continent. So I think it is very important for us to work even closer together with all our partners to make sure that we all talk as one voice and we have concerted actions together to make sure that the girl is not left behind and that all the actions, all the activities, all the declarations that we have had prior to COVID-19 are not lost. It is very important to continue the work. So we should continue working, I think, as one entity and not work in silos. So I think this is what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rita. Yes, over to you, Madam Aicha Badialo.
Thank you very much. You know, girls have suffered a lot during the school closure, and we know it. Now we know exactly the facts and some figures, not all, because it's still ongoing. COVID is not going to go right away. So we have to plan for after the COVID. And as Rita said, we have to do it together. All stakeholders should work together under the coordination of the government and not go, you know, if we want really to have good results, good performance, you have to hold hands and work together and to take into account the needs of the girls and ensure that all of them will have access to ICT tools and skills and access to internet. Because we are not going to have schools as they used to be. We will have two ways, face-to-face and online. And our kids, especially the ones who are in rural areas, they have to have access to online education. And I stop there. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with all these people around the table.
Okay, thank you, Madam Aicha. Yes, over to you, Mr. Samuel Noga.
Thank you very much. I've just read through Tanaka's story again, and I think sometimes it comes across as if girls owe us a duty to provide for them. It's not the case. We have a right, we are duty bound to make sure that girls are safe, that girls are provided for. And I think what we can all commit ourselves to do is to be the voices of girls and to stand up for girls. I mean, most of us are in positions where we can influence, most of us in positions where we have networks. I'm happy we have the second lady from Malawi here. I mean, I've worked with Rita for a long time. We've worked with Fawe. And I think most of us are in positions where we should be in a position to continually scream and shout and make sure that the issue of girls come to the table. And sometimes bring girls like Tanaka to make her voice heard in those platforms. And unless we do that, we'll be failing the girls. I mean, girls have their own agencies. I mean, girls have their own platforms, but those platforms will have to be elevated. Those platforms will have to be amplified, and we are in the position to be able to do that. I mean, if Africa wants to be the continent where we are harnessing the potential of our people, and yet the majority of them cannot even access quality education, then what kind of social capital are we building? And I think we need to continually challenge ourselves to the point where we realize that children's rights, girls' rights, is very fundamental to their very existence. And I believe that we have the power to do that. And we shouldn't rest until all girls are equal to what our very African charter says. And for me, that is what we should be aspiring for. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much to all our panelists. As we wrap up, Allow me welcome Ms. Karen Ondwasi, who is the chairperson of the Gender is My Agenda campaign, GMAC, Young Women's Network, to give us a summary of our discussions, reflections, and the recommendations that have been provided today by our panelists. Yes, over to you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Bridget. It's really nice to see you. All protocols duly observed. Good afternoon, good evening. Please allow me to turn my camera off so that my internet can be stable as I go through this. Thank you. So it's been a very interesting 2 hours. We've had good discussions, and as a young woman, I must say that these conversations are really timely, especially with the pandemic. It has shown us things. So it's really important that we continue having these conversations. Before I go through the call to action, I would just like to speak about what Madam Mary has said. We are here, we are privileged, and we have access to education, and therefore it is our role to continuously use our voice to ensure girls enroll in school, complete, and are able to sustain their livelihood. So that is a calling that we must all continuously and tirelessly do. From these discussions, I'm just going to summarize some of the key things that have come out and our call to actions. First and foremost, I would like to highlight the need for us to translate global, regional, national commitments to actions. We have a lot of frameworks in place. For instance, the Beijing +25. We have SDGs 4 and 5, which talk about education and gender equality. We have the African Charter on the rights and welfare of children. We have so many documents that should guide us. So it is important that governments domesticate them and constantly monitor and report on their progress of implementation. This way we know where we are, what gaps we still have, so that we can gauge ourselves. It is also important that we promote accountability for the effective implementation of gender responsive policies. For instance, we have policies targeting gender equality in education, elimination of violence in schools and around schools, re-entry of students who've dropped out due to teenage pregnancies. So it is our role to call for parliaments, independent human rights institutions, special mandate holders to monitor and be accountable to these policies. We also have seen the need to build a resilient education system that can sustain hardships such as this pandemic. For young people, I speak on your behalf. I'm sure we've not seen any other pandemic, and this one has been a first. So it has just shown us that some of these things might be coming and they might stand in the way of girls' education. So it is important that we have risk assessment, rapid response activities that are ingrained in key education sector plans to ensure that we are able to cushion ourselves in case there's such pandemics that can stop girls' education. So it's also important to have consultations with stakeholders and build on good practices on girls' education in emergencies. Further, we have all talked about the digital divide in education, and really, we've just seen, for instance, our sister who's trying to share her story, but because of internet, she's not able to. So that shows that a lot of young girls, especially those in rural areas who we speak for, are not able to access education. We also have seen the need to invest in arts and positive cultural practices. I must note that this is the African Union Year of the Arts, Culture and Heritage. So we must therefore advocate for inclusion of creative arts and artistic teaching methods that can promote interest and participation. We also we would like to insist that there is need to invest in girl-led feminist movements for us to address issues that face girls and prevent them from accessing education. For instance, we must always empower girls and give them a chance to use their voices to advocate against barriers such as child marriage, economic exclusion, conflict, and displacement, among others. We also call upon development partners, as most of you have mentioned, to coordinate their efforts and work together to ensure we come up with holistic programs which can address holistically all the issues affecting girls' education. And also the issue of data. So we urge that we have periodical gathering of gender segregated data on girls' education in vulnerable situations. This would enable governments to accurately plan for interventions for special needs. And last but not least, we call upon governments and development partners to have in place support mechanisms in school to address issues that face girls outside school, but still affect their schoolwork. For instance, issues of sexual violence, menstrual stigma, mental health issues. By doing all this, we are able to give girls a chance to go to school, stay in school, participate, and at the end of all, gain meaningful employment. Thank you so much. Bridget, back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Karen, for giving us that summary and the recommendations. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, the youth participants for this event, representatives of civil society organizations, representatives of development partners and donors, and all those that have managed to join us for actively participating in this high-level event. Yes, we've come to the close of this event, and I would like to ask our panelists to turn on their video cameras so that we can take a photo to document this event. Yes, thank you. And a round of applause as they turn on their videos to everyone who has been part of the event. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, over to you, tech team.
Absolutely. So John, please let us know once you have completed on the group photo. John?
It's done.
Tech team, are
Okay.
we done?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, they've done. Over to you, Bridget.
Okay, thank you very much. Till we meet again, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye, see you.
Excellent job.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Tem prazer.